When we get to middle age, we kind of think life is over. But I want to really instill in these women that it is not over. We still have dreams. It's not too late to start something new. Now is the time to bring it out. Start at that worth piece. Have you accepted and realized that you have the worth? That is where your confidence is going to come to live out this dream of yours. When you talk to Papa God, he has your best intentions in mind, and he has great plans for you. He will provide what you need. If it's in his will and it's in alignment, he's going to provide. It doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sailing. That's where learning to trust and discern, you get to practice all that.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Audacious Faith podcast, where we believe that you need to have the audacity to put your faith in God, that he put you on this earth not just to exist, but to make a huge difference in the world around you. We see this happening over and over again as God weaves a story through people's lives in amazing ways, and he takes even our pain and even what we've gone through to then empower us and enable us to be able to be a blessing to others. We've been having some great guests lately, and today is no exception to that. Just recently connected with Carrie, was recommended to me by another good friend, and she was on their program, and she's got a great story of what God has done in her life. I know it's going to inspire you today. Let me tell you just a little bit about her as we get going. The main ministry that Carrie has is especially to midlife moms, many of them out there, right? And she's helping them cultivate true, unshakable confidence, which gets in alignment with their God-given assignment. After all, God made each one of us on purpose, right? And he
Right.
knows what he wants. And so one of her mottos, which I know resonates with my heart and needs to resonate with many people out there listening today is, look, it is not too late. Okay, the very fact that you are still here, God's got plans, and he has
Amen.
things he wants to do with you. In fact, she says, you're not too late, you're right on time. So she's got a coaching program that she's been rolling out there, cracking the confidence code, which uncovers the root of our worth and identity in Jesus, helping women especially build a firm foundation on which real confidence is built. Okay, she is also a health psychologist and certified coach. And what she does is she's able to take her educational background and infuse that together with personal experience and faith. And she's already touched thousands of women in the past, and she's looking to do that more. She's a writer, a coach, and a speaker. Carrie, thank you so
Wow.
much for being here with us today
Oh,
and just
thank you for
spending a little
having me.
time. Tell
Thank
us a
you.
little bit about your story. How do we get to this point? Maybe give us a little bit of your testimony, kind of, your background, how it is you even came to know God through faith, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I am a missionary pastor's kid,
Nice.
MPK. I accepted Jesus. I asked him into my life at 14,
Mm,
but I was sort of immersed in the legalism
okay.
of religion. So while I had my, faith in Christ, I also was very worried about the rules of religion.
Yeah.
So consequently, my view of God was, this kind of ogre sitting up there, just waiting for me to screw up. Um, the consequences of that is becoming a perfectionist, a people pleaser. I had an eating disorder, on and on,
Yeah.
because we can never, those rules keep us stuck, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and so it also diminishes our worth, because it's not about relationship anymore. It's about the rules and religion. And so I dragged all of that through adulthood, for many, many years. And honestly, it was only in the last few years that I had connected with some women, like during COVID, when everyone's online more, and
Right.
I connected with some Christian women. And one of the things that one of them said one day, she talked about her relationship with God as Papa God.
Mm,
And I was like, I want that. And, it goes back to that Abba Father, right?
Yeah.
And that intimate relationship with Jesus. And so it's been a real journey the last several years for me, to get to that point of being able to say, Papa God. Isaiah 41:13 is one of my favorite verses where it's a picture of a father taking his daughter's hand or taking his child's hand, right? And, like, I've got you. And that's what I have realized through the years with working with women, like, because my background is also health and fitness, is that it always kept funneling down to worth. They would have success in certain areas, but they still felt like garbage about themselves and that worth piece. And I related to that. So in the last few years, I kept, okay, Lord, what do you want me? What is the message you want me to bring? Because I used to be, I always say my life is BC before COVID.
Oh,
And
it was
um,
big. Yeah.
right. And so everything I did was in person and I would speak and teach and things. And in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, what do you want me to do, Lord? And he said, I want you to get back on stage.
Mm.
I said, oh, cool. I love teaching and that but no, this time it's different. This time I want you to share your story. And I was like, nope.
That's where it gets personal, right?
That's
Yeah.
where it gets personal. You've got to get vulnerable. You've
Uh-huh.
got to, I'm like, nope, I opened myself up to, because I also made some really bad decisions through my adulthood. And I was like, I don't want to let that cat out of the bag.
Mm.
But he kept working on me and helping me to see that by sharing my story, it helps release other people from that shame,
Sure.
and helps other people connect to their God-given worth because we all are born with that.
Some of the things you brought up really grab a hold of my attention because you're talking about that perfection. I mean, here you are. We talk about PKs, but you have the extra letter. You have the MPK there, right? And that I actually had not heard that before, but I like that. And there you are in a situation growing up like that where you're probably there's very high expectations on you. I know with
Mhm.
my own children, I've always felt kind of bad for them in that sense that everyone just looks, you shouldn't be doing that, and the reality is every kid is a kid, right? And so you're in that. I'm sure it wasn't necessarily your parents' intention, but it's just something that comes along with it. And there is that legalistic. I know the first church that, I ended up in, I didn't actually go to church as a kid until I was almost 17. But it was very much like that. Great people, but it was like you follow this rule, this rule, this rule, this rule. And I
Mhm.
know that one of the things that happened to me as well is that I actually had that more intimate relationship with God at first. He was like my own best friend. But all the rules came in, and then I went to Bible college where God led me, and we started talking about the attributes of God, and He's this, and He's that, and He's all these big things, and all of a sudden it's like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, the
Mhm.
relational, very intimate God that I had talked to is always so much bigger than that, and it almost became intimidating
Right.
to me for a long, long time. And so when you mentioned this Papa God thing, years ago, that would have made me nervous as well. It's like, oh, how can it almost sounds too flippant, because
Mhm.
it's
Right.
so ingrained in us to be just reverent and respectful and
Right.
and
Right.
all of those type of things. And so, but you're definitely right on what you're saying here. So when did that really start to change, and how did that change for you?
Well, like I said, a few years ago when I connected with these women,
Hmm.
and it was through a Christian business, and
Okay.
I just because I it was like I was a Christian, I knew Jesus, I prayed, but I it wasn't it wasn't integrated throughout my life. It kind of like compartmentalized it, right?
Yeah.
I like to do that. Like, here's my spiritual life, here's my business life, here's my relationships. And it wasn't until I really started integrating my faith
Mhm.
throughout my whole life that and being more bold about it too. I always kind of like was quiet about my faith. I didn't share it. I was sort of like it's mine, but I had a real fear of rejection
Mhm.
of people, and so it was always sort of like, yes, I'm a Christian, but that's over here. So it wasn't, the last few years when I started to really get into the word more, just talk to God more,
Yeah.
and realize, because again, sometimes with the rules, it's like there's a right and a wrong way to pray, right? And it's like, oh, well, maybe he doesn't even hear me if I'm not doing it right. And so just getting more comfortable and relaxing some and kind of and smashing the rules, and just focusing on my relationship.
That must have been totally transformative right there
It
when that
was.
happened. And because I mean, prayer, like you were mentioning, for many has like its own language. All of a sudden, people were speaking King James English in prayer, right? Where
Right.
thous and and arts and all these things. Like, we
Mhm.
don't talk like that, but all of a
Right.
sudden,
Right.
everything is formal
Hmm.
and it's kind of weird. I mean, we even raise our voice in different ways and different things, and not really the conversation. So you kind of wonder what's going on. I think something you touched on too, Carrie, you talked about compartmentalizing your life.
Hmm.
And I know that I experienced that too. I did done a business as well. And when I first went in that business, I thought, okay, over here, I'm not going to be Pastor Jay. I'm just going to be Jay.
Right. Right.
That's going to be here. And then this is going to be the other part. And it didn't take very long where God said, no, you're going to be the same person everywhere.
Right.
And I would try to get clients, and then it would turn into a counseling session, and I'd be
Hmm.
like, I was trying to recruit this person over here. What are you doing, God? That's not what I was trying to do. And so, is that what you kind of, is there a liberation there on not having a compartmentalized life and
Yeah.
realizing
Yeah.
it's
So
two living?
yes, absolutely. Like I call it the chameleon complex,
Yeah,
right? Where you change your colors depending on who you're with.
yeah,
And so no, it's totally freeing because it's kind of like that fear of rejection is gone. Taking things personally and being overly sensitive about things is just
sure.
gone. It's like here's who I am, take it or leave it. And so yes, it's very freeing. Breaking those rules there's so much freedom in that. Even though people think, oh, you know being a Christian how is that equated to freedom, right? Like, and it's like the most freeing because you can be your most authentic self.
Right. Isn't it ironic, and this is the way the enemy twists things, that the one who literally has people in bondage and in slavery is the one that's saying you will be enslaved and not be free if you follow God.
Right.
When it's really the
Yeah.
opposite.
Very, yes, absolutely
Yeah.
twisted.
Now you work a lot with helping people with the image, helping their worth, with a lot of moms and things like that. You touched on something earlier in your story which drew my attention. You mentioned the eating disorder in there.
Mm,
And I know so you obviously, had something very heavy in your heart as regards to image, earlier on in your life. Maybe touch on this because I know that I've been told, correct me here. I mean, you've looked into this much more than me, that a person can, for example, with the eating situation like that, can be so thin that it's dangerous already, and yet they still see themselves as heavy and
yes,
overweight. What,
yes.
how
And
did you work through that? Go ahead.
so, from my perspective, and it was anorexia that I
Okay.
struggled with. From my perspective, the body image stuff is really more of a side effect
Okay.
of the root of the issue. So with anorexia, a lot of it is centered around control. So when you feel like you don't have control of other areas in your life, the one thing you can control is what goes into your body.
Okay.
So it started in high school, and it's, even though I got out of the crisis period of it after a few years, you can still carry that mindset. So anorexia became my security blanket.
Okay.
And so even though I was no longer like, I was always, so my background, my bachelor's degree is in exercise physiology.
Okay.
So, it's very easy to use your work as your excuse for, well, I have to work out because this is my job, right?
Okay.
But so while wasn't anorexic thin, um, once I got out of the crisis period, I still carried that mindset. So when I got very stressed out and things in my life became chaotic and felt like out of my control, instead of turning to God, I turned to the eating disorder, and I could literally in my mind flip a switch and turn off hunger and nothing in the mouth. But the problem with that is it also went the other way, is that I would shut down communication as well. So
Okay.
anything related around, this area would be shut down. And I would shrink, and but that was what I could control. And so it was really scary after, with some counseling, of realizing that it was time to let that security blanket go. Um, so yes. So yes, you were right as far as you can be as thin as possible and still see yourself as heavy, but that comes from as a consequence as from some of the other things.
Gotcha. So you help people a lot with counseling. You're a counselor, you're a coach. You have a lot of that background, right?
Mhm.
And integrating that with your faith. Let me see if I understand this correctly, because you just touched on something very powerful that people don't realize, and that is the control issue, this seeking to try to be in control of things. I'm thinking of Philippians 4, where it's talking about being anxious, and being anxious for nothing. And my understanding is that anxiety comes when we're trying to control situations that are out of control and we can't do it.
Right.
So our mind is racing, figuring out the scenarios over and over again and all of this. And of course, the answer in that passage is, well, it's not that those situations go away. It's just that instead of you trying to deal with it, you then turn it over to God. Why
Mhm.
do you think so many people struggle with that when God is so much more capable of handling it than we are?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that we're taught in our society
Mhm.
that we have control. And if you don't have control, you're weak,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, for men and women now, we get that belief. But I always say at the center of, or the root of control, is fear. There's always fear, and it always comes down to, we always have, like I said, I had a fear of rejection,
Yeah.
right? So because if you have a fear of rejection, then you are likely to become a people pleaser, because you're desperately seeking that love and acceptance, which are all human needs, right? We need to be loved, accepted, we need to feel safe. But so that fear of rejection is a big one for a lot of people, or a fear of, oh my gosh, maybe they're going to figure me out, who I really am, or shame is another one. So that when we have these fears or the shame, and we're trying to hide things, we want to take control of situations. Sometimes our control can also come across as helping,
Okay.
right? People who we're always trying to help and people please, and it can actually be a form of control.
Is that a way to just kind of shift the attention away from ourself and what we're worried about being found out, or what you're talking
It can be. It can also be, again, like if you're fearful of rejection or fearful of losing someone's love and
Mm.
acceptance. You're going to people please and do things. But in that people pleasing, you're also trying to control the situation some. So it's all, it kind of all comes together and is tied together. Which a lot of people don't real, you think of people pleasing, okay, the root is fear, you're afraid of losing them. So, but I'm going to control the situation by doing this for this person and making sure they have XYZ so that not only do I'm going to control how they're going to handle this and what they have um, to make sure I don't lose them.
Got it. Now, do some people, going back to what you talked about earlier and your upbringing and in the church and the relationship for many years, um, do you think that we try to jump through enough hoops to become pleasing to God enough, and that's what we're really doing, why it's so formal, why a lot of people don't have that intimate relationship that you're talking about? Because maybe the distance that we struggle with at times is because, oh, in order to be that close to God, I have to be that super of a saint. I just have to be able to perform that well, and I can't. I keep coming up short.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're keep constantly shooting for that target that we're
Yeah,
never going to be able to reach, right? Because what is perfection on this earth?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
right. And so to try to do everything perfectly, again, it instills more fear. If I'm not perfect, I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be successful, so accepting fail. I was definitely like in high school, I was valedictorian. I was involved in, you know, music and sports and I worked and it's like that type A had to be perfect at everything. Um, and because I was afraid of failing and what that might mean for me because I didn't have my worth was not grounded in
Mhm.
who I was created to be.
I'm so glad you
So,
just brought that all up and that you shared all that because I think that's where a lot of people, like, take someone like me, okay, who was not a valedictorian. I mean, I was always considered to be smart. I was put in the gifted program and all that early on
Mhm.
and was told that I was smart. And honestly, I kind of resented it at times because it's like, okay, well, you're telling me that, but I don't feel like it and I don't necessarily want to put out the effort.
Right.
And um, I saw people like yourself, valedictorians involved in this and this and this and this and every little thing, and it's like it was exhausting to even watch you, and
Mhm.
I would look at people like that and go, wow, there's just a certain level of commitment and drive and everything that I don't seem to have, and the assumption would be that that person's really got it all together. And so what you're saying is it's not that it was bad what you did because it was amazing that you did all those things, but part of it was to compensate.
Mhm. Yeah, for my lack of worth. What I thought was a lack of worth. Little did I know I already had the worth, right? Because like I
Yeah,
said, we're, at conception, we get that worth because
absolutely.
we, on a human level, we're all equal. And so but what we sometimes feel when we confuse worth with like self-esteem. Self-worth, self-esteem are not the same. Self-esteem, confidence you can build. Self-worth, and I think what I like to do is, because the words that we use matter and it can determine how we view things. Self-worth sounds like it comes from ourselves, and that's why we end up thinking we have to earn it and build it. We have to earn it by being perfect and not failing and striving, constantly striving and pushing through because we think it comes from ourselves.
Hmm.
When we change it and say it's really God-given worth,
Yeah,
whoa, that's freeing, isn't it? Like it's all of a sudden it's like, wow, what do you like? I was born with this. I don't have to work for it. No, it's like salvation. It's a free gift, right?
right.
You just have to accept it. And if you don't accept it and don't, anchor into it, because that's where really where true unshakable confidence comes from, is from God.
Mm,
Um, because what if we depend on the world for our confidence, it is. this roller coaster ride, right? Oh,
Right.
we're riding high, we're confident when we're getting great comments and likes on our posts, but that one bad negative comment crashes us, we're shattered. But when you're rooted in your God-given worth and your confidence is coming from that, those things don't matter as much. When you know that you're in alignment with the assignment that he's given to you, that's where that true confidence comes from.
Absolutely. You're touching on some really, really good stuff here. A lot of people that grew up in church like you did, and even come to it a little later like I did, we were taught a type of faith that was confusing, right?
Mhm.
Not on purpose,
Right.
but it was, for example, I'll give you an example here. We're to love God with all our heart, our soul, our mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Well, the problem is, what if we don't love ourselves? That's the
Exactly.
problem. And part of what we were taught, or at least our understanding was, you're just it's by the grace of God, which is true. This is all biblically correct.
Hmm.
It's by the
Hmm.
grace of God that you're even not consumed.
Right.
We're a sinner. Don't be walking around proud. Don't be walking, and we shouldn't be walking around proud.
Hmm.
Okay. But what we tend to do is then we tend to devalue
Right.
ourselves down,
Right.
where
Hmm.
God doesn't actually view us that way. He says, I knew you before I even formed you, and I created you on purpose the way that you are, and I put everything you need into you. And I love you so much that even while you were a sinner, I sent my son to die for you. That's how much value you have,
Right.
right? And
Right.
because, I mean, I used to struggle with that verse going, I don't really love myself very much, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense that that's what he's
Yeah,
saying,
me too.
you know?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
we were not quite correct on that thinking, though, were we?
No. No, because I mean we're supposed to love ourselves also because we're creations of God.
Yeah,
We're made in his image.
amen.
So, what is not to love, right? But it's that overconfidence, I guess prideful self-love, right? Where
Yeah,
that I think that it's really talking about that we're not supposed to think too highly of ourselves, and we're supposed to have that servant's heart.
right.
But no, I struggled with it, the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of people don't even like themselves. So,
Exactly. You share, as a pastor, I've shared that verse so many times, and I see this deer in the headlights look like you can just tell what they're thinking. It's like, well, I
Mhm.
don't really love myself very much, and so they don't grasp it, and they're thinking that God feels the same way. And because
Right.
I haven't prayed enough last week and I haven't memorized enough verses and I cussed out the person that cut me off on the freeway and
Mhm.
I was rude to the waitress who got my food wrong and and the list goes on of all the
Mhm.
things and I had thoughts that I shouldn't have had and on and on it goes and the evil one just whispering in our
Mhm.
ear constantly. And so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how do you, I mean, we're touching on everything and we're all over the place here, but it's fun. It's fun. And I love, by the way, you're a great communicator in the way that
Yeah.
share things. So, that really helps. As you're helping people now and you're coaching and what you're really zeroing in on right now, what are the things that you're seeing the most, Carrie, and where do you see the biggest need that you're able to help meet that need?
I think that, I mean, obviously from the color of my hair, I'm a midlife. I'm a midlife mom. I have four sons, a couple grandkids so far.
Okay.
And I think that women, when we get to middle age, we kind of think life is over, right? We hit menopause, it's like, oh, life's over. But I want to really instill in these women that it is not over. We have no idea how many days we have on this earth, right? And that you were created for a time such as this. You just were. And that they one of the things I love doing is vision board workshops.
Okay.
The first time I taught one, I was so shocked at watching these grown women basically become little girls again. They were given permission to dream, and they're cutting and they're pasting, and they can, glam out their their boards however they want to, glitter and
Right.
what. And it was just really interesting to me to see that we still have dreams.
Mm,
Sometimes they've had to be put on the back burner, right? Because we were raising families, we had bills to pay, and etc. But that's I want to bring that out in women my age, midlife. I'm 57, and like it's not too late to start something new. Whatever, that little dream that you had years ago that you put on the back burner, now is the time to bring it out because there is a little urgency, obviously, because we are a little older, but we don't know how many days we have on this earth. And I want them, but I really believe, again, you have to go back to basics. It's start at that worth piece. Have you accepted and realized that you have the worth? And that is where your confidence is going to come to live out this dream of yours or this assignment that God, pray about it. What I didn't think a couple of years ago that I would be really going for this dream again,
mhm.
getting onto stages again. I just didn't. I just kind of thought that part of my life was over.
Right.
But when you talk to Papa God, he has your best intentions in mind, and he has great plans for you, and he will provide what you need if it's in his will and it's in alignment with what he's assigning to you. He's going to provide. It doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sailing, right? But that's where learning to trust and discern, you get to practice all that. So,
I love what you're bringing up there. And especially, you mentioned you're 57. I'm just a little ahead of you. I'm 59. Well, I'm not 59. I'm going to be 59 in a few days. I
oh,
already put
happy
myself there.
birthday.
Thank you. On the 22nd of January, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to hold on to 59 very tightly for that. But here, I think, and Carrie, I'm sure you feel the same way. But the age on the calendar may say that we're in our upper 50s, but
Mhm.
there's so much of us that still feels like we're 8, 9, 10 years old.
Mhm.
That person's still in there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, those dreams. And the great thing about being that age for children, even though there's so much that children go through today,
Mhm.
that which unfortunately robs them of some of this, but the great thing about being that age is you could be anything.
Mhm.
The possibilities are endless in our head. And so we dream, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, and we get energized when we think about it. And you're right, life kind of beat that out of us,
Yeah.
with responsibilities and circumstances and all those different things. And to all of a sudden, I mean, it brings you back to life, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, when you just kind of and what you're talking about being older now, okay, obviously we're older now. And there's that thing called supply and demand, right? When there's a whole lot of supply, it doesn't have as much value to us.
Right.
But now when we go and we have these opportunities, I'm sure you're feeling this. It's like you don't know how many you have, so the value of it
Mhm.
every time like this and any other speaking engagement you do or whatever, the value of it means so much more to us now
Yes.
that we can really relate that and translate that to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We have more wisdom now, right?
Absolutely.
Isn't that this is what this is supposed to be?
I wouldn't know honestly, but yeah.
Or
But yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. This has been gone for quite a while, but it's convenient, very quick in the morning, I will say that. But so as you're doing that, and what are you seeing? Are you seeing the lights come on in some people's lives, and how much joy does that bring you?
Yeah, because I know this is the message that I know I'm supposed to bring, that God has given me to go out and give. And yeah, it's just to see women realize, like, you raised your babies, and there's a lot of things around that too that women have to deal with, right? And
Right.
now having adult children, there's a lot. Like, you don't just stop being a mom.
Sure.
But now is your time, and it's time to make that dream happen. It can be something simple, whether it's just, doing more traveling or getting, a a couple months ago, um, I took a trip by myself driving, and it was a big confidence booster because part of confidence does come also with doing,
Right.
right? And so I had a lot of changes in my life last year, and my confidence was knocked down a little bit. Um, but just again, rooting into who I am in Jesus and my worth, I have that. There's a reason this is happening. And just anchoring into that.
Yeah, if you're hearing screaming in the background, by the way, I don't know if you're hearing it,
I did a little bit.
okay, yeah, it's if you're wondering what's going on, I'm actually at my church office and we have a school and they just
Oh,
got out and so they're out there. But we're talking about childhood and everything, so I thought it was a
yes.
fitting backtrack.
Perfect.
Yeah, very much
Perfect.
so. I mean, that's the carefreeness that you
Mhm,
have as a, and now you're talking about that freedom once again. I mean, you
mhm,
put in the time, you've been a mom, you're still there for your children if they need you,
mhm.
but to be able to just go really experience some things as God continues to give the
Right.
opportunity. So when people are getting a little bit older, as you're talking about,
Mhm.
I mean, it's not necessarily let's just go find a rocking chair on a porch, right?
No,
There's
no.
so much more to do.
There is so much more. I heard, was it recently on the news, they had I think he was 102 World
Mm,
War II veteran
yeah,
who became a songwriter. Just became a songwriter at 102
just
years old.
now.
Just now.
Wow.
And I love stories like that because life is supposed to be lived. We're not supposed to be, don't let that fear or whatever. And that's what in my program we work on those limiting beliefs and breaking the rules
Okay.
that are keeping us stuck. Because those that has to be dealt with. So first, your worth and identity, and then breaking all those rules that we've made because they're running your show.
Hmm.
The all that fear, the limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough for that. I'm not smart enough. All the excuses we throw out, because they're running your show. So we work on breaking those, and you are who God says you are, not who the world says you are.
That's big.
Probably not even who you say you are, right? So many
Exactly.
times like you said, when you don't love yourself, it's all that yuck running around in our heads that is running the show. And it's time to break those rules and experience the freedom so that you can live out the assignment. We all have an assignment, that purpose, right? That calling, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
We all have it. And they can be different purposes. Sometimes we think, oh, we have one purpose in life, and that's no, we have many purposes throughout our lives. And so I would ask, are you living yours? Do you even know what yours is? And again, it's just having that conversation with God. I mean, like, show me, what do you want me to do for the rest of my life? Um,
You just touched on it real big right there. What you just said there right at the end. Are you even living your purpose? Do you even know what that is? And then you
mhm,
gave the answer to that. The one that would know what that is the best is the one who made you to begin with and
exactly.
put that into
Exactly.
you. So you definitely want to connect there. So that's a
Mhm.
great thing that you're saying. You're connecting people back to that. Let's kind of talk about this now in the context of the race, okay? That race of life.
Mm,
We think of, for example, in Hebrews chapter 12, where it says, cast aside everything and run with endurance, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So, did you ever do any running? Were you an athlete?
so I was into fitness.
Okay.
I've, yes, taught a lot of fitness classes throughout my lifetime, worked out a lot, ran a little bit. Actually, I always hated running until I was getting divorced.
Okay.
Through my divorce, it was a stress
Stress
relief
relief.
for me.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about the runner, whether it's running or swimming or whatever, when someone's going,
Mhm.
what to be, I'm thinking about the runner that when they're running that last leg, even though they're tired and all that type of thing, you see them give everything that they've got where they literally lean and fall
Last
through the
push.
day.
Yeah.
Right. So as you're counseling and helping and encouraging women or whoever out there, all right, about this getting to this later part even in life and oh, maybe it's just too late for me, I'm going to slow down. How do we instill in them that no, now's the time, seeing, the author
Mhm.
and finisher of our faith, I want to give it everything out there. I want to pour it all out there. I'm going to have nothing left when he says, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." I
Mhm.
don't want to have left any of it on the field, right?
Right.
What do you want to say to them?
I think a few things that came to mind, it's easy there's a difference between hustle culture
Hmm.
and pushing through like you were just talking about because, you know, God promotes Sabbath, right?
Yeah,
So even in that pushing through, hustle culture says you got to work, work, work 24/7, 7 days, go, 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 go. And I don't think that's the same thing that what God is talking about there, right?
sure.
That we're pushing through, we're running the race, but you still have to take time to pause
Hmm.
and rest. And I guess that's where also my health and fitness background comes in
Right.
because we have to take care of our bodies,
Yeah.
and a lot of us aren't. And it's all connected. We can't separate the, you know, nutrition from exercise, from sleep, from stress. It's all connected and taking care of all of the areas of our lives. It's all interconnected. So I think taking care of that, feeding ourselves, not just physically, but spiritually. And um, yeah, just kind of, again, like knowing what your purpose is, your assignment, and following through on it.
This is going to be a great twist to the conversation because I love the fitness part and you have that background. So let's say a person's going to the gym
Mhm.
and they're trying to get all this stuff and get really, strong and all these type of things. And people make the mistake, right? They'll go into the gym, and every time they go into the gym, it's a full body workout,
Mhm.
right? And it's like that doesn't work, right? So I mean, I know where we go. For instance, we'll have chest day. Well, we
Mhm.
don't have chest day the next day again.
Right.
It's like a week later.
Yeah.
And the same thing, then it's back day, and it's a week later, and then arm day it's a week later. The only one they say we could do twice is like legs or something like that. And I don't like
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
legs.
there's different philosophies, but what I know
Yeah,
what you're getting at is that you don't want to work the same muscle group 2 days in a row because muscles need rest and recovery. They actually build during the recovery period. Because when we're working out, if we're working out hard enough, we're breaking down the muscle tissue. It's during
right.
the recovery when we're resting and we're giving it plenty of, fluids and nutrition that they then repair and build themselves. And it's, yeah, the same way with our lives. We can't go, 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 go without resting and replenishing, or you just burn out.
Exactly. And that's what you said a lot of people are doing, right? It's like, oh, more activity, more activity.
Yeah, the hustle culture, yeah, it's not about that. Like even despite like there being maybe a little bit of urgency, like, hey, if you're gonna do this, let's get going on it, right?
right.
Versus, oh my gosh, I gotta do, and then that's not the kind of mindset that we want either.
So there are times then where it's important when we sense God saying, just be still and know me,
Hmm.
right? Be still and know me right now. You can do that, but yeah, you can do that later. It's more important right now that you let me refresh you and you get more connected with me.
Right, right. And I think sometimes too, in fact, sometimes we're in a season of waiting.
Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a season of waiting in every area of your life, but I know for me, I'm in a season of waiting in one area of my life. That was last fall, I prayed specifically about this situation, and that was the word that came, wait.
Right.
You so, and there was freedom in that because I didn't have to do any more striving and any more worrying and stressing out about it. And it's just wait. And
because the timing, he has a timing,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
think about people have had close calls or something when they're driving their car.
Mm,
And if you've heard the story, I'm sure, and you've probably experienced it yourself. Wow, if I would have been just 2 seconds earlier or later, you
yeah.
know, what would have
Yeah.
happened? It's all about timing.
Hmm.
The times that we get aggravated because we're trying to get somewhere and we get held up by an unwanted interruption.
Hmm.
And then we go on the freeway or whatever, and then we see some accident that just occurred. That
Yeah.
may have been us. I mean,
Exactly.
how many things by God sometimes saying, wait,
Hmm.
does he set up the timing exactly just right? That's how precise he is. So, um, I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation. We could keep on going, but let me just say this. Um, how do people connect with you the best? I'm going to have some links that you can send me, and I'll make sure it's in there.
Yep.
But you have a lot to say and a lot of ways to help a lot of people out there, and I know that's where your heart is. So if somebody has been, really just is connecting with you here and they want to
Mhm.
find out more, what's the best way to get in touch with you and see what you're doing?
So I would say right now, Facebook is my primary platform.
Okay.
I will also give you a link to a freebie that I have that will help women really with that worth piece and help them to, because it's easy to say, well, just accept it, right? But there are ways to kind of integrate it into more, including like, things like, you know, plain praise and worship music, when you're driving.
Okay.
That talking, just having conversations with God throughout the day. It doesn't have to be one specific, prayer time, but ways to build your relationship that will help also you to integrate into that worth piece a little bit more. So I'll give you that link too. But I would say right now, Facebook probably is the best way.
Awesome. Well, I encourage everyone out there to go ahead and do that. Make that connection if God's put that in your heart right now. Carrie's got some great things to be able to share and be able to help you, and that's where her heart is. And so definitely do that. And also, if you were blessed by this podcast episode, that means that also there's probably somebody else in your life that would be blessed by it also.
Mm.
So share it with them so that they can hear what was said today and they can maybe make that connection as well. And Carrie, we'll stay in touch in the near future. I know that we're gonna see much more that God's doing through you, and I really appreciate you sharing your heart with us today. Any parting words just for the person out there that's kind of seeking and maybe still feeling like a void in there that never seems to be filled, that God's laying on your heart to just kind of share with them as we close?
Well, I would say one, if you haven't asked Jesus into your life, that's number one.
Amen.
And just if you're caught up in those rules of religion, to work on knowing that that's why Jesus came, right? I
Amen.
call him the OG rule breaker. Like he came to break those rules because as humans we're flawed. Look at the old people in the Old Testament, the greats,
Hmm.
they just continually messed up, right? Because they're
Yes.
human. And so that's why Jesus came. And so you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to, like, he will forgive your sins. And there's just so much freedom in that, knowing like, oh, phew, I don't have to be perfect. I can't, you cannot get to heaven on your own. You cannot build your worth. Like that all comes from God. And that's the most awesome part of it is like it's not from us. Stop trying to strive and stop allowing fear of 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 whatever. There's so many different fears, right, that we base our identities on. Um, you don't have to be that chameleon complex and changing who you are. You can just be your authentic self, and God loves you because He created you, and you're created in His image. And just live in that. That's the joy and the freedom that comes with it.
Amen. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to know the person who is, and that's Jesus,
Exactly.
right?
High
So
five.
you have the connection with him, And then that's your credential right there. All right, because he's
Absolutely.
paid it all. So thank you so much, Carrie, and thank each one of you that has watched this episode today. We encourage you to go out there with audacious faith because just as she just mentioned, the God who made you, he sees you, he knows you,
Mhm.
and despite all that, guess what? He's chosen to love you. So we will see you next time, and God bless you all until then. Take care.
Bye-bye.